Good morning again, and welcome to Brighter Morning with Bo, and I'm Bo Tiwari. And we have Economist Dr. Darren Conrad on the line, and we will have a conversation with him now. Darren is no stranger to MCTV and Brighter Morning. He's been here before, and we have a discussion with him. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Dr. Tiwari. I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Good to see you. You all dressed up for the budget today?
Yes, definitely.
You're going to the parliament?
Yeah, well, I'll be there on TV, watching them on
Right.
TV.
Okay. So I want to have a little discussion with you. Look, we have a situation in which, I think you looked at the papers this morning and you would see all the distress that is being addressed. But we have to find a way of reviving what you might call the pre-COVID economy. The SMEs, the retail services, manufacturing services, all of these, whether export or not. We had a building of relationship with the private sector recently over the vaccination, but that relationship is not good because a lot of private sector people are angry about the way the government has handled the closures and shutdowns and so on. And so that relationship needs to be built. The relationship with the unions are not so good. People are at pains to find jobs, and the loss of income has been severe. You know, we need a confidence boost to get some investment. I was just talking to InvestTT about it. Now, in this climate, what do you see the Minister of Finance doing that can make a big difference, a shift in strategy to Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, I think you mentioned it in your introductory comments there, that what really needs to be done is to bolster the confidence. So what I expect to see the minister doing would be certain items that would be discussed and raised in the budget would be ones geared towards bolstering confidence in our system, because what we have is a general decay in institutional frame, which is quite dangerous. And to add to that, we have, of course, we acknowledge revenues and increasing costs. So we really need that confidence booster in the budget. And I would add that what we're seeing now, and we talk about the pandemic having an effect on the society and the economy. Yes, it certainly does. But what the pandemic has done is it has exposed all of our vulnerabilities. It has exposed the vulnerable groups in society. It has brought to the fore a number of challenges that we had way before COVID. And so what we need now is corrective mechanisms it would be tough, but the burden should be equally shared moving forward to make the necessary adjustments to our economy and reposition or pivot the economy and focus more on the small and medium enterprises and manufacturing and services sector to get the economy moving once again.
Yeah, well, in one sense, we have the old economy, all right, which is the economy pre-COVID that we need to revive. You have a lot of small businesses that have collapsed, that cannot open. You have some that are struggling to reopen. And generally, the commercial activity has been, by and large, dead and to some extent subdued. And really, you need a revival there. That is true. But we also need, you might say, to build a new economy. I mean, we have the Ministry of Digitalization, digital transformation now. And the hope for that is that you're going to get some, what you might call smart government. But there's also need for smart private sector and a smart society and economy. And therefore, you need the kinds of investments that will take us there. You need the kind of activities that will take us there. You need the kind of direction that will give the confidence boosting that is required. I mean, how do we marry this concern for revival of the economy and this necessity of building a new economy, because we have to restructure away from energy and into a diversified export economy?
It really is. It calls for a lot of cooperation between the private sector, the public sector, as well as the to provide the research and that is much needed to guide the process forward. We have a number of issues that would need to be addressed. There's a lack of sort of sometimes data to support the policy making decisions. And we repeat the initiatives over and over. I think every sector speaks to the challenges with the ease of doing business, yet not much is done. We there are a lot of there's acknowledgement with in terms of revenue generation, but little has been done in that regard. So again, we there's a lot of talk about a lot of the challenges that, but very little being done to move the direction that it needs to be done. Of course, we need the transformation. So the theme of the budget should be more lines of transformation, not just transform the entire economic system. And we really need a lot to be done out of that. And the problem is not necessarily the allocation, which is what most people look at in terms of the budget discussion, is the allocation, but the efficiencies with which these institutions operate, or the lack of efficiency within which these government systems operate, is of a concern actual allocation. And so, by and large, to have that transformation issue addressed. Yes, the technology will take us thus far, but then, of course, the lack of the institutional framework be necessary is a more of a surmounting challenge. Take, for example, the not just that are run. How efficient are they? What are the yields or what are the returns on those sort of transfers and subsidies in that regard? Do we see any improvements in the quality of people? Those are more challenging issues or more burning issues that would need to be raised. And of course, the issue of borrowing, and there is no way around it that the government has to continue to borrow. But borrowing to do what? Is it productive borrowing or unproductive borrowing? Are we seeing any returns when they goes and stands? So those are some of the issues that would need to be addressed. And of course, we would need to transform, as I said, not just diversify, but transform. We have a golden opportunity with a surplus labor supply, right? We have a lot of labor floating around. How do we mobilize the human capital, activity that can yield the returns that we so desire in the agricultural sector? Any improvements in society historically, from economic system speaking, there were improvements and transformations that are born out of agricultural surplus. Even in older economic systems where people move from rural sectors to urban areas, it was born out of an agricultural surplus. So we need to think along those lines in terms of how do we want to generate and create and add value. We have cocoa. We boast about Trinidad having quality cocoa, but we export the raw material. We don't convert it into product that can be for a much higher price, but we export the raw material, which takes us back to what was done with the sugar. Exported the raw material, and then we got the finished product. It should be the other way around. We export the finished product. We use the natural resources that we have to generate the surpluses that we would need, and it can begin there.
Yeah, well, you're talking about not just diversifying, but creating backward and forward linkages with agriculture, creating the agro-processing opportunities, and really creating the product to market high value issues. And you think the Minister of Finance will listen to things like these? I have heard so many good proposals coming from economists like yourself and like others. And by and large, I don't see any responsiveness to it. I've heard so many good proposals, non-self-serving proposals coming from the business sector. I have heard pleas from the trade union sector as well that are under pressure now with so many people losing their jobs. And of course, you are hearing the cries of the population at large who have lost their jobs, who can't pay rent, who can't put food on the table, and so on. You hear all of these things. And the thing is, I don't envy the Minister of Finance. He has an extremely difficult job in perhaps the most difficult time we've ever had with this COVID thing. But at the same time, I would expect that he would pay attention and he would listen. Do you expect the Minister of Finance and the government to listen?
What is different this time, I noticed, and I've been listening all week and last week to all of the defectors, even the Vox Populi we've been listening to, and there's a clarion call, very distinct and clarion call from all corners of Trinidad and Tobago for some type of transformation. They may not use the word transformation, but there's a clarion call to address some of the issues because it affects everyone, every sector, and every individual. We have significantly increased costs, which anyone can tell you the cost of living is certainly increasing. And that need hope that the ministers or the powers that be will listen, since it's coming from every corner of the country.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very important thing. And we also have to stop letting the statistics lie to us. You can't come and say that the inflation rate is 4.2%. I mean, that is a joke. You can't come and say that the employment is 3% or 4% or 5%. That is a joke. We have to be realistic about these numbers. I mean, the cost of living, a container now is twice what it used to be to land it on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago. And all the goods in it are going to cost more. And that is going to translate to people when they go to purchase with their dollar from their pocket. The number of jobs that have been lost, I don't think we've had any kind of recovery that would allow us to recoup, a significant proportion of those jobs. And I think we need to be realistic about these things. On the other hand, we cannot continue to pay 41% of our expenditure for subsidies and transfers. And at the same time, we cannot continue to give hampers for the next 2 years. So we've got to do things that will allow the confidence to return, investment to happen, jobs to be created, incomes to be earned, purchasing power to manifest in the marketplace, and so that you can begin to make things happen. I mean, as an economist, speak to some of these things so that, in the right quarters, people can understand what needs to be done.
Yes, and you're so right about the statistics. But when you drill down, the statistics, the macro statistics will tell you one thing. But when you drill down to the regional area, the regions, the municipal corporations, let's start with unemployment rates. We have a labor force that in good years, it was not even reaching 600,000 for 1.3 million people. It's about 500,000 plus. a very small labor force. So any type of loss of jobs will be felt significant. Our labor force is already quite small, large population. When we look at the unemployment in terms of age groups, it tells you a different story, and that can speak to the heart of what are some of the other challenges that we face. When we look at unemployment in the Western Trinidad, Northwest, we see unemployment in single digits, 2%, 3%. But when we look at Southwest Trinidad, it went upwards of 20+%. So the macro statistics don't tell us the truth. We need to get the information in terms of the regions. And the biggest concern, not concerns, but to me, it's a like a mystery. We have an economy that generates 20 billion in GDP. But how is that going to try to trickling down? We have significant challenges there. And by and large, the unemployment, going back, it is maintained at a specific rate due to some of these government programs that are delivered. So we really need to think about what we're doing. Transfers and sanction, almost 50% of our expenditure. But what is it targeted? Is it getting to those who really need it? When in terms of making the 500 million available to the the agricultural sector. But what about cold storage facilities for those areas that are fishing villages, so to speak? What about the addressing the land tenure issue? I know last time I think I mentioned that. We talk about building homes, but the quality of the homes that are delivered by HDC, we see it in the news every day. So we're not doing a good job in terms of effective or efficient spending to appease persons. We're not doing a sustainable. Any led program we see where individuals benefit, it sort of prevents some social disruption, but at the same time, is it improving the lives of those individuals? We've heard about the revenue authority for quite a while, but what about revamping the existing inland revenue institution to ensure that collection is better?
All
There are
right.
things that can be done to improve the collection.
We are going to have to close now because we've got a break. The program has come to an end. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Conrad, for being with us this morning. We'll have you another time and we'll talk again post-budget. Okay? Take care of
Okay, great.
yourself.
Thank you. Will do.
Okay. And to those of you who have stayed with us and are watching, I want to remind you that today is budget day and the Minister of Finance will read. But tomorrow morning, first thing, from 6:10 a.m., we are going to be talking to Dr. Roger Hussein. We are going to be talking to former Minister of Finance, Mr. Larry Hawaii. We're going to be talking to the AmCham CEO, Neeraj Tiwari. We are going to be talking to Dr. Marlene Atz from the University of the West Indies. We are also going to be talking to Vivek Charan from the regional chambers. We're going to be talking to Chris Marcus, who is from Aspire Funds Limited. And we'll be talking to Karen Teixeira, former finance minister, and Dr. Varnas James. A full team of economists, former ministers of finance, and business people. All right? See you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6 a.m. with Brighter Morning with Bo. And I am Bo Tiwari signing off for the news with Andrew Chan.